Hello Uplanders, I'm YK2012, founder of the Upland Guide, and today I'm going to be talking about designing your own racetrack within Upland. We all know that just last week Upland had announced that players will be able to not only race cars within Upland, but design and create their own racetracks as well. Now you're probably wondering, how does YK2012 already know how to design and create a racetrack within Upland? And the answer is that I don't. The mechanics have not been announced yet, but what I do want to talk about are some really important things that you need to consider even before you start thinking of the racetrack that you want to create. As Upland said, if everybody is going to have the ability to create a racetrack, that means that it's going to be very simple to do, and one of the good things about that is that anyone can do it. One of the downsides is also that anyone can do it, and there are going to be infinite number of combinations and permutations of racetracks that can be created within Upland. Several players can choose the exact same streets to race on, and all you have to have is the starting and end point at a different location, or change the direction in which you travel, and those are unique racetracks. The issue then becomes an issue of supply and demand. If there is an oversupply of racetracks and everyone creates one, there are going to be numerous racetracks that are not going to be used. So I'm assuming that anyone who goes and designs a racetrack, the goal is that people will be racing it and using it. So the question then becomes not only how do you design the racetrack, but who are you going to market it to? Who do you want to come and race your racetrack, and why would they come to your track? These are the things that I'm going to be addressing in this video. What you can see here in Upland is Kimberly Avenue, which is located in the Glenville neighborhood of Cleveland. This landmark here is Jerry Siegel's house on 10,622 Kimberly Avenue, and he, along with Joe Shuster, they are the ones that created Superman. Now this is something that's really interesting. I had absolutely no idea that this actually happened in Cleveland. And it is really cool that Upland decided to make this house a landmark. We can go ahead and take a look at the street view, and we also see some really cool Superman paraphernalia in this street view house, which I'm going to assume was the childhood bedroom of Jerry Siegel. All of these houses that are constructed on this street, as well as many other locations in this neighborhood, are controlled by the SUPERMILES United node, and this video is actually sponsored by them. If you don't live next to Superman's house or any other landmark, and you're not part of a node, you don't have to worry. In this video, I will also explain to you how anybody can look for value and create a meaningful racetrack that people will want to use. The mission of the SUPERMILES United node is to honor Superman, Glenville, and its social theme. Their mission is to become a social responsibility node that not only focuses on rebuilding the Upland Metaverse, but also focuses on rebuilding the real world, making both planets a better place to live. You can read more about the SUPERMILES United node in the link in the description below. What you can see now on the screen is the Upland Guide website, where we have a page that is dedicated to racetracks. As I mentioned, to have a successful racetrack that people will want to use, you are going to have to ensure that you are providing value to some group of people. Here is a partial list that I have compiled of potential stakeholders or groups with vested interest into having a racetrack in a specific neighborhood. This list will guide me in the rest of this video as I show you with the example of the SUPERMILES United node of how anyone can think of a racetrack and provide value to as many of these people and groups as possible. The first group of people that I'm going to talk about is node managers, and listed under node managers is also node members. And essentially, if you're part of a node, you are part of a community, and different communities can provide many different things to its community members. And I think that having a racetrack is something that could absolutely bring people together. You could create a local racing league and have different members of your community race on a regular basis. If you have a strong node and you have a strong community, players will be able to see that, and they might want to become a part of that community, therefore strengthening what you have. If players are going to be able to define their primary residencies to be within that specific neighborhood where your node is, and you are able to create a racing league that is only for players who live in that node, then players who want to race that racetrack would have to then buy into your node or be accepted into it in order to participate. So this is one way where you can strengthen your community that you have created where you intend on living. Similar to that, you can look at the property owners themselves. If you own a property along the racetrack and you have put a nice billboard outside, or you have a pretty cool piece of custom outdoor decor, maybe you hired an architect to design your custom house, which is extremely special, people will be able to see that as they race along the racetrack. Here is the promo video that Upland put out regarding racing, and you can actually see here that as you drive along the streets, you can see all the structures and buildings and any 3D objects that exist within the metaverse. So this is in San Francisco, and this is the San Francisco ferry terminal. Now I'm over here in Upland, and you can actually see this ferry building here, and right across the street this apartment building. We can also see that the road actually forks around this patch of grass here. And we can see here the exact same thing is happening. We can see that there is this divider in the middle of the road. Here we have the apartment building, and to the left we have the ferry terminal. Everything that you see in Upland, everything that you build, whether it be a structure, whether it be a piece of 3D outdoor decor, when you drive by it during these races, you will actually be able to see it. If you own an interesting property, or you have some cool designs, that can absolutely provide you with additional benefit and value to have a racetrack that passes by your house. So back over here in Glenville, Cleveland, I think it's very obvious how a racetrack could benefit the players who are part of this node and the node itself. Now it might not just be enough to provide value to the members of a specific node, but eventually these nodes might want to have people come and visit, and outside people come and race their tracks. Maybe some of these players want to open up some businesses, and they need that foot traffic to come and use their racetrack and also visit their businesses. Now when I'm talking about businesses, I'm referring to not only metaventures, but also potential partnerships that players can create with the real-world businesses that are part of that community. I think that the mission that the SUPERMILES United node has is very well tied into giving back to the real world. So there is absolutely an opportunity, in my opinion, for the SUPERMILES United node to reach out to real-world businesses in Glenville and in Cleveland that are Superman themed, or that give back to the Superman community with their intention to form partnerships with different institutions both within the metaverse and the real world, organize events, and donate profits to the SUPERMILES social projects. This could be a great way to provide exposure to some of those organizations. You could open up a business for them and potentially sell their branded NFTs or other memorabilia from that store. And having a racetrack or even a racing league that have many players come to this neighborhood in order to use could absolutely show outside real-world organizations the added benefit of coming into the metaverse and being a part of the local community or the racetrack itself. Up until now, I've discussed how a racetrack can benefit the players who own properties along the racetrack or in that area. But obviously, you have to start providing some value to the people who are going to be coming and actually racing the racetrack. So what exactly does that value look like? Upland is a play-to-earn game, so the play aspect of this has to be fun. You want to design a racetrack that will be fun and interesting, whether that means that there's going to be lots of twists and turns, or whether it's just a straightaway drag race. Both of those are potentially possible within Upland, and those would probably be marketed to different types of people. I'm sure that there will be a market for both. What's important as well is that along the racetrack that you have these visuals, whether it be houses that are built in a standardized manner, whether it be interesting pieces of 3D outdoor decor, maybe it's a landmark like Jerry Siegel's childhood home that entices players to come and race this racetrack, or even just watch the races. That's the play of the play to earn. Regarding the earn aspect, you will also have specific types of players who car race not from the fun aspect of it, but from the ability that they are able to earn. Maybe similar to how there are players who are exceptional at treasure hunting within Upland, there will be players who are exceptional at racing in Upland. And some of these players might have their own specialties. Maybe a specific player owns a car and different types of block explorers that are exceptional at racing cars along straightaways. On the other hand, there might be players who specialize with cars and block explorers as drivers along racetracks that have a lot of turns. These players would probably be searching out specific racetracks or racing leagues that best match their abilities as drivers. So as a racetrack designer, or maybe as a node manager, you want to determine what kind of racetrack you want to have within your neighborhood. If you personally or your node members plan on racing that frequently, then you might want to start strategizing around the different types of block explorers that you are going to own, and maybe the types of cars that you want to buy. None of this information has been released yet, but we do know that these block explorers are going to be drivers, and some of them will be better at other attributes than others. So once this information is released, if you have a racetrack that you're planning on creating, you might want to think also about the types of block explorers and cars that you want to be purchasing, so that you can better optimize yourself for earning once these features come into play. It's not entirely clear yet what exactly you are earning by winning these car races. It might be UPEX. They did mention that your block explorer would be able to get some additional points or skill points and improve its racing ability as they continue to race and potentially continue to win as well. So that might be another way that you can earn within Upland. It's also possible that any community can provide its users with additional value outside of the game, whether it be prizes or recognition for winning races or for winning tournaments. The earn aspect of play to earn does not have to be limited to the in-game functionality itself. The more value a community or the racetrack designer can provide the players of its racetrack will likely increase the amount of players that will want to come and race that racetrack. Now, in addition to Jerry Siegel's house, which I showed you on the map as the landmark within Upland, there are other locations in that same neighborhood that also have significance to Superman. We can see here that the street signs on Kimberly Avenue and also Parkwood Avenue have this S for Superman. And the SUPERMILES United node, they have decided that they are going to centralize their focus on the streets that have these Superman S on them, as well as areas that have significance to Superman. So in addition to Jerry Siegel's house, there is also Joe Shuster's house, which is located at Parkwood and Amour Street. There is also a plaque for Superman, which is located at the top of Parkwood. And all of these areas are controlled by the SUPERMILES United node. Here we can see that here is Kimberly Avenue that I showed you before. We can see here that this property, which is marked as the East Side Market here on the map and owned by QRVI, is where the Superman plaque is. It's also interesting to note the color coordination that they chose for their buildings, and that is red and blue, just like Superman. So it's really cool to see how they are really integrating the theme of Superman into their node. If we go down here along Parkwood Drive, several streets down is going to be Amore Street, which is where Joe Shuster lived. And all of these areas and streets, they are going to want to figure out how to include those in a racetrack. Since there isn't any information about what you actually can and cannot do when creating a racetrack, some of this is pure speculation. But it will be interesting to note if the racetrack that you have to create has to be a loop, or if there can be a start and a finish line that do not coincide. What you can see here is a sketch of the racetrack that I have designed for the SUPERMILES United node, and I have simply just rotated the map here so that it can fit. Over here is the location of Jerry Siegel's house on Kimberly Avenue, and here is the intersection of Parkwood and Amore Avenue, which is where Joe Shuster lived. Here at the intersection of St. Clark Avenue and East 105th Street at the East Side Market is the location of the Superman plaque. So I have made sure to include all of these three important locations on the route. You can also see that the route doesn't intersect itself. This is likely something that will be important, that you don't want to have cars crashing into each other by double backing on the same route. I have made sure to include as much of Parkwood Drive as possible in this race because this is one of the streets that is important to Superman and the SUPERMILES United node. They have lots of properties along the street. They want to maximize the amount of racetrack that is on that street. At the end of the street, I have looped it back along East 111th Street in order to bring the race back to the starting point and have a closed loop. If we are looking to see what type of racetrack this is, we can see that on East 111th Street there is a long straightaway which would be optimized for speed. We have a few turns in order to get onto Kimberly Avenue and also to Amore Street. So the question would be, what type of race and complexity would they like this to be? Similar to what was done on Elgin Avenue looping back to Kimberly, you might be able to continue that exact same pattern by zigging and zagging through all of these streets. That would absolutely change the type of race that this would be. You would have to have cars and drivers who are a lot better at turning and steering than a race car that would be good on straightaways. It's also unclear if there is a minimum or maximum length that any racetrack could have. So these are things that only once we learn more about these racetracks, the members of this node would have to think about what they want to do. Based on how they're designing their racetrack, they might want to strategically think about buying other properties that maybe they didn't think of before. If they wanted to have the racetrack loop back on Bryant Avenue, they might want to buy some properties on Bryant Avenue. They might want to focus their energies on purchasing cars and block explorers who best fit the racetrack that they have designed in their neighborhood. As I mentioned at the top of this video, there are absolutely infinite possibilities of how you can design this race. When thinking of where you want this race to start and finish, there are an infinite number of possibilities as well. Do you want it to start here all the way down at the south end of the city, which is on the right side of the screen, heading up East 111th to get a great start on a straightaway? Or do you want it to start at Jerry Siegel's house, which is a landmark? In which direction do you want the players to start driving? All of these are important decisions that you want to make when you're thinking of the difficulty and complexity of your racetrack and optimizing that for different types of cars and block explorers as well. Contrary to Kimberley Avenue, Amore Avenue does not have any structures built on it yet. We saw that Kimberley Avenue had a nice row of blue and red houses, which will likely be used for different types of businesses and metaventures or homes of the node members themselves. In the future, players will be able to create their own 3D outdoor decor, and it would be interesting to see if the SUPERMILES United node has any plans in order to create any outdoor decor potentially related to Superman that they would be putting along a street like Amore Avenue. Taking into consideration the video that I showed you before, where you can actually see all these 3D homes and objects that are on the street, the question is, how are you going to design your streets? How are you going to integrate different properties that might have some structures versus properties that might have some outdoor decor? What they did do that I really like is they coordinated their building effort on Kimberley Avenue, and they chose a specific color coding that they want to use for all their buildings. And this is really smart so that it does look nice. It looks like there is coordinated building here and that everyone is in fact part of the same node and group. If you're starting to construct your own buildings, the Upland Guide has developed a building guideline that you can use and questions and checklists that you can ask yourself before you start placing your first building or before choosing the colors. You want to be aware of many different things that are going on so that you can create some nice uniformity within your neighborhood. This link can be found in the description below. I mentioned before briefly that any metaventure that is located along the route will be able to be seen. We know that at the top of the metaventure it has the name, and there is a specific pin that is attached to the building itself. So this would make good advertising for any metaventure owner within Upland to have their business located along a racetrack. The same can be said for racing academies. In the future, Upland had announced that that will be a new type of metaventure where you will be able to train in some form different block explorers or rent them out for other players to race on your racetrack. So when you're dealing with racetracks, that also brings in the idea of having a potentially a block explorer shop, a racing academy, maybe a showroom where you're selling cars as well, maybe a body shop where you can give custom paint jobs. Potentially the SUPERMILES United node could create their own type of custom paint job that have Superman related colors or decals that can be put on these cars. Lastly, we know that Spark is not only required to manufacture cars, but it's also required to power cars. So if you're going to be racing your car all day, you're probably going to be running out of energy. You're going to have to charge up your car using Spark. It's unclear how that's going to happen, but it's possible that you might need to have some sort of a charging station, and that could be another type of metaventure that could be useful somewhere within this neighborhood. Designing a racetrack just for the sake of designing a racetrack because you can will not guarantee that players will come and use it. If you don't have a route that is visually appealing or fun to drive, if it's too difficult, if it's not optimized for a specific type or group of cars or drivers, then people might not want to use your racetrack. It's really important that you think of all of these potential stakeholders and more, because the more people that you are able to provide value to, the more likely people will gravitate to your racetrack. Just to recap, what I have laid out for the SUPERMILES United node is a racetrack that actually provides value to the node owners and node members, metaventure and outdoor 3D decor metaventure owners, the racers themselves who might want to go and see a Superman themed racetrack and learn more about Superman, real world organizations and non-profits that can be brought into the metaverse and become a part of this racetrack and maybe one of these leagues as a sponsor. And of course the players who would want to come and race a Superman themed racetrack and also support the node and community and give back to the real world community that the node is going to be partnering with in the future. Once again, you can learn more about the SUPERMILES United node in the description below. If you have any questions, please leave us a comment, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.